Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. It's Science Fiction Saturday once more, and I have two science fiction movies for you and one horror film which is kind of science fiction adjacent. Two of them are good, one of them is not. So let's get started. To steal an analogy from Australian right-wing politics, science fiction cinema is a broad church. From Metropolis to The Matrix, The War of the Worlds to Spaceballs, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga to The Man from Earth, there's an immense variability in the genre. It's an infinite buffet, and so many of us just stick to one section of it. I'm not like that. When I was a teenager, I always ordered the weirdest things I could afford on any menu. Sometimes I didn't enjoy the meal, which was par for the course, but I expanded my culinary horizons. I found out that I liked olives and feta cheese, pho and char siu ramen, black forest gâteau and gulab jamun. Science fiction's the same. Walk to the other side of the buffet and fill your plates. That brings me to a bit of a plate filler here. A small 2023 science fiction movie directed by Mark Turteltaub. It's called Jules, and it's a sweet little movie. Ben Kingsley plays a pedantic old man called Milton, who lives in a small rural Pennsylvania town. His wife's died and his daughter, a local veterinarian, looks after him and worries about him. Milton's on the start of a cognitive decline. One night after he finishes his dinner, a pizza that he's overcooked, a flying saucer crashes into his backyard. It's about the size of a marquee tent. Milton is really upset because the UFO destroys his bird bath and his azaleas. He tries to call 911 and tells them that a flying saucer's crashed in his backyard, but they don't believe him. He kind of shrugs his shoulders and goes to bed, and the next morning there's a silver-skinned alien collapsed on his back lawn. Milton does not know what to do. He puts a blanket over the alien to keep it warm and leaves a glass of water by its side. The following morning, the alien's huddled up near his back door. So Milton brings it inside, gives it some food. It will only eat apples and a glass of water. They watch Milton's television shows as Milton explains the shows to this silent, mute alien, and the alien starts to heal. Two of the older women in town, Sandy, played by Harriet Harris, and Joyce, played by Jane Curtin, who also attend the same town council meetings that Milton does, find out about the alien.
Good Christ, what is that?
You remember the spaceship? This is the little man who came out of it.
He's got to be a secret. Don't tell anybody.
Sandy names the alien Jules, but Joyce calls him Gary because she says he looks more like a Gary. So the three of them sit down and talk to this alien and help it and explain things to it, even though they're not sure whether it understands them. And as Jules begins to repair his spaceship, the US government starts looking for the UFO. The three old people try to understand Jules and why he keeps drawing pictures of cats for them. And as the movie goes on, we find all three of these people are lonely, but they bond together as a kind of pseudo-family because of this extraordinary thing that's happened in their midst. At his daughter's insistence, Milton is diagnosed with dementia, and he has to deal with that. He just doesn't know how to. He talks to Sandy about it as she drives him home from the appointment, and she talks him through it, and she gives some perspective because her husband suffered from dementia before he died. As things can move on, Joyce, who is first perceived as a nosy, grumpy old lady, shows that she has a wealth of character depth and life experience that nobody around her ever suspected. She's the one who figures out why Jules is drawing pictures of cats and how the group can help him get them. This is a sweet little movie. Recently, when I talked about the Spielberg-produced movie Batteries Not Included, I said that the movie, which is thematically similar to Jules, I observed that Jessica Tandy's character in Batteries Not Included had what I called Hollywood dementia. That's dementia which comes and goes based on the need of the script and the plot. Milton's cognitive issues in Jules are not Hollywood dementia. They're the genuine long goodbye kind of dementia. Kingsley, Harris and Curtin have a really great rapport and their characters feel very lived in. Zoe Winter as Denise, Milton's daughter, is the serious core of the movie, and she does a really good job of playing somebody who isn't in on the joke but is just trying to look after the father she loves but sees pulling away from her because of his disease. And Jade Kwan, an actress who's mostly known for her stunt work, plays Jules, and this was an epic task for her. The production tried to minimise the number of times she had to go through the prolonged makeup process. At first they thought it would be about 12 to 15 times they filmed things right, but in the end she went through the whole process of makeup and costume 30 times during the making of this movie. And using body language alone, she really sticks to the landing. She gives the character an unknowability, but also it's a character that we empathise with. There's no facial expressions, there's purely where the character's attention is at any given moment. And that's a nice piece of acting. Jules the movie succeeds in the balancing act of personal drama and quirky science fiction movie and a character-based comedy really well. It juggles all of those clubs fantastically. It's not an easy thing to do, especially since the movie doesn't make the mistake of getting the magical alien to fix Milton's dementia. It isn't that kind of movie. It doesn't have that level of cinematic dishonesty, which so many American movies have. So if you want a small, funny, quirky science fiction movie, check it out. You could do a lot worse. It's probably on a streaming service at the moment, and it is really interesting. Speaking of a lot worse, I also saw the new Netflix science fiction movie Atlas, starring Jennifer Lopez, Simu Liu, Mark Strong, and about an hour of computer game cutscenes you've seen a dozen times before. This movie is to science fiction what Donald Trump dancing is to the Nicholas brothers in stormy weather. It's a dishonest, prosaic, derivative, and deeply annoying movie. It was directed by Brad Payton, who gave us two forgettable Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movies, Rampage and San Andreas. This is a movie about apocalyptic AI, which might have been written by ChatGPT, if someone could get ChatGPT to run on a 1978 scientific calculator. Brad Payton said the movie was inspired by the computer game Titanfall, which is entirely believable because second-hand copies of Titanfall are selling for $6 in the bargain bin at EB Games. In the movie Atlas, J.Lo stars as Atlas Shepard, a genius-level strategist whose mother created an embodied AI called Harlan, played by Simu Liu. This movie is really shit at naming characters. For a start, Atlas looks like this, not like this. It's a silly name for a female character, which makes me suspect the movie gender flipped the protagonist when Daniel Radcliffe and Mark Wahlberg knocked back the role. Also, naming an evil AI Harlan. Really? Harlan Ellison should rise from the dead and punch the screenwriters in the apricots for that one. In a montage over the titles, evil Harlan causes an AI uprising and kills several million people. When the armies of the world band together, he builds a spaceship and exits stage left to an unknown location in interstellar space, where he hunkers down for 28 years. Meanwhile, the human race fortifies Earth orbit, it creates Titanfall-adjacent mechs, and puts up a new Hollywood sign. Atlas the Analyst interrogates and tortures an AI hid in a suitcase, who reveals that Simu Harlan is on a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy, which is surrounded by a totally, completely scientifically accurate asteroid field. Which raises the question for me, why the Andromeda Galaxy? The Andromeda Galaxy is 2.53 million light years away, but the screenwriters are too scientifically illiterate to know that. 2.537 million light years. 50 light years would have been enough. There are over 1,000 stars within 50 light years of Earth, but these drongos don't realise that. Anyway, Mark Strong sends a battleship full of soldiers cybernetically linked to their AI mix to this planet, along with Atlas, who basically tells them all they're going to die. They do, when Harlan blasts the hell out of the spaceship. Atlas, from the block, is chucked into an AI mech and plummets toward the planet, arguing with the AI in the mech until she almost dies. The mech's name is Smith, because if the Matrix taught us anything, it was that Smith is a good name for a friendly and supportive artificial intelligence. The rest of the movie is bang bang explosion explosion. Simu Liu gets a hole rammed through his head with the length of pipe, and the human race doesn't get killed by spiteful AIs launching a flotilla of, get this, carbon bombs at the planet. Carbon bombs. This movie is just product. It's grist for the Netflix mill, full of sound and fury signifying absolutely zip. Nobody in Atlas the movie acts like a real human being, or even a real AI. The dialogue has this magical quality of turning the whole audience into clairvoyants, because we all know what the characters are going to say 3 seconds before they say it. Atlas is a cynical piece of work designed to satisfy only algorithms, corporate pod people, and their spreadsheets. I'm writing this review on the day I saw the movie because in a day or two, it will have faded entirely from my memory. It's as memorable and as remarkable as the fifth last cheeseburger you ate. You should watch it, but only to win a bet for a large amount of money. On the other hand, French horror movies really disappoint. I just checked out a new one on Shudder which really fulfills every aspect of a good horror movie. It's the kind of movie they should teach in film school. In French it's called Vermines and in English it's called Infested. Fair warning, this is not a movie for arachnophobes. Directed by Sébastien Vanacek, it stars Theo Christine as a young man called Caleb who lives in a squalid old apartment block near Paris. His sister Manon is renovating the apartment, which was owned by their deceased mother because she wants to sell it so that both siblings can move on with their lives. Caleb collects insects, amphibians, and reptiles. He has a makeshift vivarium in his bedroom which keeps the temperature right for his collection. He wants to start a reptile zoo at some stage. While looking for a gift for an older lady who looked after the siblings when their mother died, Caleb also buys a spider from a dodgy animal seller called Ali. We know this is a bad idea because we see where the spider comes from in a pre-title sequence set in a rocky desert somewhere in the Middle East. Caleb, who hustles by selling stolen collectible sneakers, puts the spider, who he names Rihanna, in a Nike shoebox until he can build a glass cage for her. What he forgets is that there's a hole in the corner of the box, and Rihanna escapes. Here's where the movie gets slightly science fictional. A cold winter apartment block in Paris is a hostile environment for spiders that are used to the desert. The spider lays eggs and for some reason, evolution accelerates at a crazy rate. The little buggers breed faster and they spin a whole lot of webs, and each generation begins to grow in size. Part of the fun of this movie is the increasing size of the little buggers. And Caleb is a great protagonist. He cares about the people who live in his building. He has a moral code of his own. And he also has all the scars and glitches that come from growing up very poor. Like all the other characters, he's grounded and believable, and he reacts the way people who grew up where he lives would react in these circumstances. In that way, Infested has echoes of Joe Cornish's Attack the Block. As Caleb and his friends discover what's happening and try to deal with it, the building becomes an evolving death trap. The cops have sealed the building too and cut off all communications with the outside world. There are a number of small characters who are really interesting. There's a nutcase who thinks that Caleb is dealing drugs. There's an MMA fighter who lives in the building and wants to become a professional MMA fighter. And there's a great Chinese lady janitor who fights back against the infestation with never quite knowing exactly what's happening. Infested has so many great set pieces as the group of people meets increasingly deadly and unexpected perils from these spiders. The suspense in this one is masterfully done, and that's especially remarkable because this is the director's first feature film. Vanacek does some great things with the jump scares too, which I really appreciate. They don't happen when we expect them to. We get the moment when we expect the jump scare, and then 1, 2, 3 or 4 beats later, it hits. Just when my brain says, oh, there's no jump scares this time, bam, the whole bloody thing happens. There's also terrific use of shallow depth of field, where the characters are doing something in the foreground, and there's a very, very out of focus spider moving somewhere behind them. You need to pay close attention to this one. Using the iconic and wonderfully designed Arenas Picasso in Noisy-le-Grand near Paris for the apartment block is a real next level choice of location. It looks strange and unusual, and that really adds to the environment and the feel of the film. I had a smile on my face watching this one because everything I wanted to go right in this movie did. The believable characters, the locations, the escalation of threat, the careful use of practical and CG effects, and the way the director knows what to show and what to suggest. The movie does all of these things marvellously. And to cap things off, the way the aftermath is handled is tone perfect. You should really check this one out. It is totally worth your time. 3 movies for you. 2 good ones, 1 bad one. All of them new, but all of them are really the kinds of movies that people who like science fiction movies of any kind are going to want to see. with the possible exception of Atlas. That one you could turn into a drinking game using a number of different criteria. So that's it for this time around. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all that stuff. It helps other people find the videos and it helps me with YouTube. Let me know what you think too if you saw these movies or you want to see them, because there's some meat on the bone on the first one and the third one, but that second one is really, slim pickings. You can also support the channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, I'm going to talk about 3 movies by a filmmaker and playwright who's done some really interesting stuff and has this wonderful gift of giving us secret knowledge in his movies. So until then, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some creepy crawly spider movies and just give yourself a scare. And I'll catch you next time.